I'm quitting my job. You'll support us, my sister said, smiling like she'd done me a favor. I laughed until I realized she was dead serious. Before we dive into the story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'm always curious to see how far these stories reach. Now let's get into it. Stick with me. My name's Ria Dalton, and if there's one thing I've learned about family, it's that love can sometimes feel like a leash. I've always been the dependable one, the one who stayed late at work, who paid the bills on time, who kept things from falling apart. My sister Kara? She was the storm. The free spirit, who chased every whim, every bad decision, and somehow never faced the wreckage she left behind. When she quit her job that morning, I thought she was joking. She and her boyfriend Logan had been barely scraping by, hopping from one temporary gig to another. I'd already helped them with rent, twice. So when she said it, when she looked at me with that entitled smile and said I'd support them for a while, it was like every year of quiet resentment condensed into one sharp, burning second. I stared at her across my kitchen table, the one I bought with my own overtime money, and felt my pulse in my throat. "You're kidding, right?" I asked. He shrugged. "You make enough. Family helps family, Ria." That was her motto. Family helps family, as long as it meant me doing the helping. The thing is, I wanted to believe I was strong enough to carry everyone. But in that moment, I realized I'd been carrying too much for too long. Every time I said yes to her, I was saying no to myself. So I told her no. Not loudly. Not with anger. Just a quiet, steady no, Kara. I can't. Her face twisted like I'd betrayed her, not the other way around. She called me selfish, cold. She stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty seat she left behind, and felt something new settle in my chest. It wasn't guilt. It was relief. And I didn't know it then, but that no would be the beginning of my freedom. When I think back, it's almost funny how early the pattern started. Kara was always the one with the spark. At least that's what Mom liked to call it. "She's just creative, Ria," she'd say whenever Kara messed something up. "Not everyone can be as responsible as you." I heard that line so many times it became a lullaby, soft, dismissive, and impossible to unhear. I was 14 when I got my first part-time job at the diner down the road. Kara was 16 and already skipping school to work on her art. I remember coming home after a double shift, my shoes still sticky from spilled soda, and finding Kara crying because she dented Dad's car. Guess who paid for the repairs with her entire summer savings? Yeah, me. Never really stopped after that. Every crisis had my name written on it. When Kara overdrew her checking account, "Ria, can you just transfer a little until Friday?" When she wrecked her second car, "Ria, you've always been good with money." When she moved out and couldn't make rent, "Ria, family sticks together." Our parents, Elaine and Mark, didn't mean harm, I think. But they made it clear where the roles stood. Kara was the dreamer. I was the safety net. They'd smile proudly when I picked up extra shifts or canceled a trip so I could lend her money. "You're such a good sister," Mom would say, patting my hand like I'd done something holy. The truth is, I started to wear that title, the strong one, like armor. It felt good at first, being dependable. But slowly it became a cage. Every decision I made had to include room for Kara's mistakes. Every goal I had came second to her potential. Years passed that way. College, first apartment, first real job. All milestones that came with new ways to rescue her. I told myself it was temporary, that once she figured things out, I'd finally get to live my own. When Kara showed up with Logan and 2 suitcases, I didn't even get a chance to answer before she brushed past me, dropped her bags and said, "Just for a few weeks." The words sounded harmless at first. A few weeks. I could manage that, right? But a few weeks turned into a month, then 2, and before I knew it, they'd practically claimed the apartment as their own. My spare key disappeared. My groceries vanished within days. The dishes piled up, the air reeked of smoke and takeout, and my living room looked more like a college dorm than a home. They slept in late, watched TV all day, and left their mess for me to clean. The electric bill doubled. My food budget tripled. The rent check came from my account and they never offered to split it. When I got home after long hours at work, I'd find them sprawled on the couch, laughing at some show, oblivious to the exhaustion hanging off me. One night, I walked in and saw Logan ordering another round of takeout, on my card. I froze. "Why are you using my card?" I asked. Kara didn't even look up. Relax, you'll get paid back. We're all family here. The way she said family made my stomach turn. It wasn't love, it was obligation, a chain she kept yanking tighter. That night, after cleaning up their mess again, I overheard her whisper to Logan, "Ria's fine. She's got savings. She can handle it." Something in my chest went cold. They didn't see me as a sister. They saw me as a safety net. The next morning I tried to talk to her. He said, "A few weeks, Kara. It's been 3 months." She rolled her eyes. "We're getting back on our feet. You're just uptight." Her tone was mocking, dismissive, like my frustration was the problem, not her freeloading. When I told her I couldn't keep doing this, she crossed her arms and said, "Your family. Supporting us is what family does." In that moment, the words didn't sound loving, they sounded like a threat. I realized family in her mouth meant one thing. My life doesn't matter as long as hers runs smoothly. And that truth hit harder than any insult ever could. It was a Friday night, the kind where all you want is silence and a hot shower. I'd worked a full week of back-to-back shifts and finally had a moment to breathe. I logged into my bank account, mostly to plan bills for the month. But what I saw made my stomach drop. My savings balance blinking back at me, almost empty. $8,000 gone. At first I thought it was a mistake. I refreshed the page 3 times, praying it was some kind of glitch. Then I saw the transfer, same-day withdrawal, authorized under my own name. Except I hadn't made it. My hands started to shake as I walked into the living room, where Kara and Logan sat on the couch, laughing at something on TV like the world was fine. "Kara," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you touch my account?" She didn't even flinch. "Yeah," she said casually. "Logan had an emergency. He owed someone money. Don't worry, we'll pay you back." Her tone was light, almost teasing, like she'd borrowed a cup of sugar, not stolen my savings. My throat tightened. That was everything I had, Kara. My emergency fund. She looked at me then, no guilt, no shame, just a smirk. "You'll make it back. You always do." It was the most effortless cruelty I'd ever heard. I called our parents, shaking, hoping they'd finally understand how far things had gone. But my mother sighed, tired and predictable. "Honey, don't make a big deal out of money. You can't hold that over your sister's head." Dad chimed in too, telling me to be generous, Ria. "She's your sister." I stared at the wall while they talked, realizing how useless it was to explain. To them, Kara was the fragile one. I was the capable one. It had always been that way. After I hung up, Kara asked if I was still mad. I didn't answer. I just stood there, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of Logan opening another beer. That was the moment something inside me went silent. Not broken, finished. That night, while they laughed in the next room, I sat on my bed, staring at my packed bags in my mind. For the first time in my life, I wasn't planning to fix anything. I was planning my exit. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't want another argument or one more guilt trip dressed up as concern. I just decided. Quietly. Completely. The moment the offer letter from the Oregon firm hit my inbox, I knew it was my exit ticket. A clean start. Somewhere no one knew my sister's name or my history of saying yes, when I meant, please stop. I signed the papers the same night and didn't tell a soul. Every evening after work, while Kara and Logan dozed off on my couch, I made moves in silence. Closing accounts, redirecting mail, packing boxes little by little. I sold the furniture they never appreciated and kept only what could fit into the back of my old SUV. It felt strange, living in the same space with people who didn't notice their surroundings thinning out. I was erasing my presence one drawer at a time, and they were too busy arguing about what movie to stream next. The morning I gave my landlord notice, I felt something light in my chest. Something I hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was the beginning of courage. A week later, the plan was ready. I waited for Kara and Logan to head out for errands, which usually meant a coffee run and hours of wasting time. The second the door clicked shut, I moved. Fast. Clothes, paperwork, photo albums, the cat carrier with my tabby curled inside. All loaded in under an hour. I looked around one last time. The apartment, stripped bare, looked like it had before they came in. Peaceful, quiet. I locked the door, slid the key into the mailbox, and drove off before I could think twice. By the time Kara realized I was gone, I was already across state lines, the sky dimming over the highway. My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, texts, voicemails. "How could you do this to family? You abandoned us." I didn't answer any of them. I just turned the phone face down on the passenger seat and kept driving mile after mile, until the city lights faded and all that was left was open road and the sound of freedom humming through the tires. The first few days after leaving felt unreal, like I was living someone else's life. My phone kept lighting up with calls I didn't want to answer. Mom's name flashing over and over, Kara alternating between furious texts and fake apologies. When I finally skimmed the messages, I almost laughed. "You're heartless. You stole from us. How could you abandon family?" They made it sound like I'd burned the house down instead of saving myself. Kara even threatened to report me for stealing her furniture. The same couch I'd bought with my own paycheck, the same dishes I'd scrubbed clean for months while she watched TV. That's when I realized arguing wouldn't fix anything. I didn't owe them explanations anymore. So I blocked them all. Every number, every email, every reminder of the chaos I'd lived in. The first morning after, I woke up to absolute silence. No doors slamming, no one asking for money, no one criticizing how I lived. Just the sound of my cat purring beside me and the soft hum of my new studio's heater. It was small, barely enough space for a bed, a table and a few boxes, but it felt like mine. For the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling guilty for it. I found a rhythm quickly. Work, home, quiet. My new job in Portland was demanding, but in a way that made sense. People respected boundaries here. My supervisor, Grant Lyle, noticed how organized I was, how I handled every project with calm precision. Instead of taking advantage, he encouraged me to slow down, to take breaks. It was strange having someone see my effort and not expect more than I could give. Little by little, my life began to take shape again. I filled the space with warmth. A second-hand couch, shelves of books, a coffee maker that hissed in the mornings. There were moments when guilt tried to creep in, whispering that I'd abandoned my family. But then I'd remember the weight of their demands, the endless noise of obligation. Now the silence wasn't empty. It was peace. And I wasn't heartless. I was finally free to have a heart of my own. Time passed quietly, each week folding into the next, until one afternoon a familiar name popped up in an unexpected message. It was from Mrs. Adler, the neighbor from my old building. She'd always been kind, the type to water your plants when you were gone. Her note was short, just a few lines, but it stopped me cold. "Hope you're doing okay, Ria. Thought you should know Kara and that boyfriend moved out in a hurry. Bad. They left half their stuff behind." I didn't respond right away. I sat there rereading it, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. It wasn't triumph. It was confirmation. The chaos I'd walked away from had finally consumed itself. Over the next few weeks, more pieces of news drifted in through mutual acquaintances. Kara and Logan had been evicted after missing 3 months of rent. They'd maxed out every credit card they could get, borrowed from our parents, and disappeared overnight, leaving unpaid bills and a furious landlord behind. No one knew where they'd gone, only that they'd burned every bridge on their way out. Then came the update I didn't expect. My father's company downsized and he was one of the layoffs. My mother's health, already fragile, began to slip under the stress. Hospital visits, bills, tension. The same people who'd called me selfish now couldn't keep themselves afloat. I wish I could say I felt satisfaction, but it wasn't that simple. These were the people who'd raised me, the voices I used to measure my worth against. But hearing what had become of them didn't make me feel vindicated. It made me realize how fragile the entire system had been. For years, I'd been the glue holding it all together, the one absorbing the fallout. Without me, the cracks had nowhere else to go but through them. One night, I sat on my porch in Portland, listening to the rain tap the roof, and thought about how things had reversed. The same family that once drained me dry was now facing the consequences of every careless choice. And though part of me wanted to reach out, another part whispered the truth I'd learned the hard way. Some lessons only sink in when you stop rescuing the people who refuse to save themselves. Nearly a year had passed when the past walked straight through the glass doors of my office. I was finishing a report when I heard my name. Sharp, too familiar. I looked up and there she was. Her hair was matted, her clothes wrinkled, eyes ringed with sleeplessness. For a second I thought I was imagining her. She looked nothing like the sister I'd once known. "Ria," she said, voice trembling but urgent. "Please. I need your help." The room felt suddenly smaller. I stood, unsure if I wanted to run or listen. She stepped closer, lowering her tone. "We lost everything. Logan's gone. I can't pay rent. Mom and Dad can't help anymore. I've changed, I swear. I just need a little help to get back on my feet. Her words tumbled out fast, desperate. The part of me that had always fixed things, the caretaker reflex, stirred just for a moment. Then I remembered the empty bank account, the laughter, the phone calls where she called me heartless. Kara, I said quietly, I can't. Her expression hardened in an instant. The pleading vanished. You can't or you won't, she snapped. You've got a good job, a place to live. You owe me after everything you've done. I felt the sting of her words but stayed still. I don't owe you, Kara, I said. My voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. I didn't change. I finally stopped being your backup plan. That silence between us stretched out, heavy, bitter. Then she scoffed, tears mixing with anger. You're cruel. You've become just like them. Before I could respond, security appeared. Someone from the front desk must have noticed the scene and called for help. She tried to push past them, shouting my name, but they guided her toward the exit. When the doors finally closed behind her, I felt my knees weaken. I went straight to the restroom, locked the stall, and leaned against the wall. The tears came quietly, not from guilt but from something that felt like release. Years of exhaustion poured out all at once. When I finally looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the sister who used to fix everything. I saw someone who had finally chosen herself. Revenge didn't arrive in grand gestures or fiery speeches. It came quietly, the way morning light slips through a curtain. Slow, certain, unstoppable. I didn't plan it that way, I just kept moving forward. Each small victory felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been buried under years of guilt and obligation. At work, the effort I once poured into keeping other people's lives intact now fueled my own growth. I took every challenge that came, and within months, my dedication paid off. The promotion wasn't flashy, but it meant something deeper. It was recognition earned without anyone's help, without apology. My coworkers saw me as capable, not as someone to lean on, and that difference filled a space inside me I hadn't realized was empty. Outside of work, life softened. My days had rhythm, my nights had calm. I made friends who understood boundaries, people who didn't confuse kindness with surrender. Weekends were mine to spend however I wanted. Reading by the window, exploring new trails, cooking dinner without anyone asking if there was enough for them too. Then one afternoon my phone buzzed with a familiar number. My parents. I hadn't heard from them since Kara's visit. Against my better judgment, I read the message. It was short and predictably guilt-laced. We're struggling. Things are bad. Please send something for family emergencies. You're the only one who can. For a long moment I stared at the screen. The words used to trigger an automatic response in me. The urge to fix, to give, to prove I was good. But not this time. My fingers hovered for a second before typing back a single line. I've given enough. I sent it, blocked the number, and set the phone face down. There was no surge of triumph, no dramatic music, just stillness. The kind that comes after a long storm finally ends. Weeks passed and they never replied. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was healing. Every morning after that felt like standing in clean air after years of smoke. My revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about refusing to let them hurt me anymore. And that quiet, steady choice was the most poetic ending I could have written. Do you think I made the right choice by walking away from them, or should I have given my family another chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories.